Gary. Come on up, sir. All right, why don't you step, I'll swear you in. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Could you state your name and spell your last name for the record?
John Randall, R-A-N-D-A-L-L.
All right, why don't you settle in there and then we'll have some questions.
Good morning, Lieutenant Randall. Where are you currently employed?
Vernon County Sheriff's Office, Nevada, Missouri.
And how long have you been with the Vernon County Sheriff's Office?
Since July of 2000.
What is your current rank?
I'm a lieutenant in charge of the Road Patrol Division.
And what are your current assignments and duties with the Vernon County Sheriff's Office?
I supervise 6 other officers. I review reports. I take everyday calls for burglaries or property damage, and just whatever needs to be done as far as law enforcement duties.
Do you have any trainings or certifications in connection with your role as a law enforcement officer?
Yes, sir. Or yes, ma'am. I've been through numerous trainings throughout the years. I am a certified crime scene investigator. I've received training in evidence collection, crime scene photography, just a little bit of everything.
Now, back in November of 2009, did you have the same assignments and duties that you have now?
Basically, yes, ma'am.
And do you have that same rank?
No, ma'am, I did not. My rank at that time was an investigator.
And what did that entail?
Basically, I still took your normal day-to-day law enforcement calls for duty, but if we had a major crime or something like that, I was called in to help process it and collect evidence and develop suspects or whatever it took it on that crime scene at that time.
Now, turning your attention to November 9th of 2009, did there come a point in time when you were involved in an investigation in an address in Richards, Missouri?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
And do you happen to recall the address?
It would have been, I believe it was 9636 East D Highway in Richards, Missouri.
What county is that in?
That is in Vernon County.
Had you ever been to that address before?
No, ma'am, I had not.
Now, in connection with your investigation and responding to the scene, did you author a report?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Now, I'm going to show you what has been pre-marked S-114 for identification. And sir, if you could please just identify that document for the court.
Yes, ma'am, that is my initial report that I wrote of the night of November 9, 2009.
Now, how many pages is that what you have in front of you?
The total report or just the report involving this?
The total report.
19 minutes.
And does that encompass the investigation of just November 9th, 2009?
No, ma'am, it was an ongoing investigation.
Over how many months could you say?
I believe it covers from November 9th through January 2010.
So are there multiple reports connected attested to that in that 19 pages.
Yes, ma'am.
And does that take place over multiple dates?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, I'm going to leave that report for you at the stand, and if at any time you need to refer to that report to refresh your recollection, just let us know. Now, why did you respond to the residents in Richmond, Missouri?
I received a call, I was off duty at the time, I received a call to go to a location off a D highway, reference a home invasion, and a person had been shot during that home invasion.
And is that the only information that you received before you arrived?
Basically, yes.
Do you recall what time you arrived?
No, ma'am, I do not. I know it was in the evening time, it was dark, I do remember that.
And what vehicle were you driving that day, if you recall?
I believe at that time I was driving a 2004 Jeep Cherokee as a patrol vehicle at that time.
Is that a marked patrol vehicle?
Yes, ma'am, it was.
And when you arrived, did it have the lights on and the sirens?
I don't believe it did, no, ma'am.
And how many officers were present when you arrived at the scene?
I believe there was two.
Who were those officers?
One of them would have been, I believe, Deputy Kevin Lester, and the other one would have been the sheriff of Vernon County at that time, which was Ron Peckman.
When you arrived at the scene, what initial observations did you make?
Sheriff Peckman was talking to a female that was later identified as Linda Scammell, and he was obtaining information from her when I got there.
And can you describe the property a little bit?
It was, honestly, no, ma'am, at that house, I cannot really describe what that property was.
Do you recall if it was near a main road?
It was on the north side of D Highway. D Highway runs east and west, and it was a residence that sat on the north side of that blacktop highway.
Now I'm going to show you what has been pre-marked S-115 for identification. You can just take a look at that photograph and identify that for the board.
This is I believe this is the residence where the home invasion actually occurred, which would have been on the south side of D Highway.
And is that photograph an accurate depiction of the residence that you responded to on November 9th, 2009?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, you indicated earlier that Sheriff Peckman had been speaking with Linda Scammell. Did you make any contact with Linda Scammell yourself?
Initially, no, ma'am, I did not.
And is Linda Scammell the homeowner?
She is the homeowner of this residence. When I first met Linda, or when I first seen Linda, she was at her, I believe her brother's residence, which is on the north side, north of this residence here. She was actually at family members' residence, is where I responded to first.
And at some point after you responded to the family member's residence, you made your way to the residence that's depicted in that photograph.
Yes, ma'am.
S-115.
Yes, ma'am.
When you arrived at that residence, what did you do?
Sheriff Peck and I, we entered the residence through the east entry door. At that point, we cleared the house to make sure there wasn't any suspects or anybody else in the residence at that time.
Were you able to locate any suspects at that time?
No, ma'am, we were not.
So what was your role after checking for suspects?
After we cleared the residence for suspects, at that point, it was to secure the crime scene.
What does that entail?
Making sure that any of the evidence that we could possibly want to collect isn't disturbed until we photograph it. Making sure there isn't anybody in the house that we don't allow in the house, so the crime scene's not contaminated or anything like that.
And did you in fact take photographs?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And is one of the photographs that you took the photograph that I just handed you, which is marked S-115?
Yes, ma'am. That's the outside of the residence on the east side of the residence.
Now, what did you do next in terms of your investigation?
We I took the photographs of the crime scene. At one point, Linda Scammell was brought down to the residence where we were at, and we had her tell us what happened that night.
And can you describe what observations you made when you entered the house?
We entered the residence through that east door, and it went into a little smaller living room area. We went through that area, went into another partial living room area. Downstairs, noticed blood on the floor in the living room. What we determined to be pieces of what appeared to be human flesh in a couple different areas. In the kitchen area of the house was
I'm going to stop you right there.
Okay.
I'm going to show you what has been pre-marked S116 for identification. If you could identify that document for the board.
This would be a photo of the living room area where the fireplace is located. Would be on the west side of the Scammell residence.
Did you take that photograph?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And is that the room that you made those initial observations?
Yes, ma'am.
And can you see any of those blood stains on that photograph?
I don't believe so, no, ma'am.
So where would the blood stains have been?
I believe the blood stains would have been located on the floor in front of this is a couch right here. These are two recliners. I believe the blood stains would have been over here near this coffee or this table with the computer set on the floor.
Right, now looking at this photograph that's published for the smart board, are you indicating that it would be in this area?
Yes,
over
ma'am.
here?
Towards that fireplace, it's the rock fireplace that's there in the corner.
And this would be part of the rock fireplace?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, you started saying that after you went into that room, you went into the kitchen.
Yes, ma'am.
And what observations did you make when you went into the kitchen?
There were two wooden chairs sitting in the kitchen area side by side. If you were sitting in the chairs, you would be facing west. There were white and color zip ties on the floor. The chair that was on the south side, that chair had a white zip tie still intact on the left arm. There was blood on that chair. There was a steak knife on the counter that also had blood on it. There was blood on the floor in the kitchen. There was also a pair of scissors laying on top of a kitchen counter.
Okay, now I'm going to show you what has been pre-marked for identification, S117 and S118. You can take a look at both of those photographs. And starting with S117, can you describe what's in that photograph?
This is the kitchen area. These are the two wooden chairs that I was talking about. You can see the zip ties on the floor, and apparently the scissors was on the bar stool, not the counter, and the blood on the chair that I called the south chair.
Now looking at the board behind you, you indicated there were zip ties on the floor, and is that in that area right there?
Yes, ma'am, that would be the zip ties.
And as far as the scissors on the bar stool, is that in this area here?
Yes, ma'am.
And as far as the blood stains, that's the chair that you described as the south chair, I
Yes,
believe it
ma'am.
was? Did you take that photograph?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And is that an accurate depiction of the scene as you observed it on November 9th, 2009?
Yes, ma'am.
Now turning to the next photograph, which I believe is marked S118. Can you describe what's in that photograph?
That's a different angle of the chairs with the zip tie on the left arm, the zip ties on the floor, and the blood on the chair and on the floor also.
Did you take that photograph as well?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
This is just a closer shot,
It would have been a little further away, I believe, ma'am.
further away. And you mentioned the zip tie on the arm. Is
Yes.
that right there?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that an accurate depiction of the kitchen area as you observed it on November 9th, 2009?
Yes, ma'am.
And after going through the kitchen, what did you do?
Can I look at my report for a second?
Absolutely.
After we were in the kitchen, we spoke with Linda Scammell. She referenced about a broken cell phone that was on the counter.
You should look for the pre-marked S119 for identification. Take a look at that and identify that document for the court as well.
That would be the broken cell phone that was on the counter.
And through your investigation, were you able to determine who had broken that cell phone?
We were advised that
Objection, Your Honor, source of the information, might be hearsay.
Okay, without getting into these statements, through your own investigation, was it able to determine who was the owner of that, or who broke that cell phone?
just by what Linda Scammell told us.
Did you take that photograph?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And is that an accurate depiction of the cell phone that you observed
Yes,
on
ma'am.
November 9th?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, in addition to searching the inside of the residence, did you search the outside as well?
Yes, ma'am, we did.
And did you make any observations on the outside of the residence?
On the, I believe would be the west side of the residence, we checked the phone line, that appeared to have been cut going into the residence.
I'm going to show you what's been pre-marked S120 for identification. Officer, can you tell us what's depicted in that photograph?
That would be a picture of the cut phone lines coming out of the piece of conduit there.
Did you take that photograph as well?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And is that an accurate depiction of the phone wire as you discovered it on November 9th, 2009?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, you indicated that was on the outside of the residence,
Yes, ma'am.
toward the west side.
I believe so, yes, ma'am.
After photographing the scene and the evidence, what did you do with the evidence?
The evidence was collected and put into evidence bags and secured.
And what is the typical procedure for collecting evidence from the Vernon County Sheriff's Office?
But depending on what type of evidence it is, if it's evidence that we want to send to the lab for DNA or something like that, we place it in paper bags. We label the bags with our case number, our victims, suspects if we have any at that time. Place it in the bag, seal it up, initial the evidence tape, and we take it back to our office and secure it till we take it to the lab.
Was that procedure followed in this case?
I believe so, yes, ma'am.
After collecting the evidence in that manner, what else did you do?
I completed a crime scene sketch of the residence, showing approximate locations of the evidence that was collected.
I'm going to show you what's been pre-marked S121 for identification. S121. And can you tell us what's depicted in that photograph?
It's not the right.
This photograph is my crime scene sketch of the Scammell residence.
You drew that yourself?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And is that the typical procedure from your department?
Yes, ma'am. It was at that time, under that sheriff's administration, it was, yes, ma'am.
And what's the purpose of creating that type of diagram?
We use it as reference points to show where items or evidence were in a residence or in, so we can show locations of where the evidence was collected.
Do you happen to know if it's to scale?
No, ma'am, it is not to scale.
Now, that diagram is on the board behind you.
Yes, ma'am.
Would you mind getting up and showing the jurors where you entered the residence from?
We would have entered through this door right here, this east door. What I'm showing here on this is an east door entry.
And which is the room in which you found the bloodstains?
The bloodstains were found over here near the fireplace.
And then where did you find the two chairs?
The two chairs, the wooden chairs were here in the kitchen area right here. This would be the north chair, and this would be the south chair.
And how many rooms were in that house?
There was 1, 2, 3, 4, I believe 5 rooms, ma'am.
Was it all on one floor?
Yes, ma'am, it was a single story modular home.
Thank you, Lieutenant. You can have a seat. After completing the crime scene diagram, did the scene remain secure?
We released it to family members that night.
And at that time, were you able to determine who was responsible for the home invasion?
Not at that time, no, ma'am.
Did you have any suspects in mind?
No, ma'am, we did not.
At that point, what was the status of the investigation?
It was a open pending investigation until further evidence was developed or suspects were developed.
And did you continue that investigation in the days after November 9th?
Yes, ma'am.
Did that include November 13th, 2009? The record
Yes, ma'am.
just reflect the officer did refer to his report. Now, on November 13th, 2009, what did you do in connection with your investigation?
I received a call from Sheriff Ron Peckman that he had received a call from the Scammels, and I don't know for sure which one it was, reference a possible piece of evidence that they had found.
Did you ever return to the Stangeland residence on that day?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And what did you do when you arrived?
I met with, I don't recall who I met with. I met with family members of the Scammels, and I was given an item that they had found in the field east and south of the residence.
What item was that?
It was a Walmart tag that had a UPS or a UPC code on it.
What did you do with the Walmart tag after you located it?
I photographed it and collected it for evidence.
Why is that?
We had information that the night on November 9th of the home invasion that the suspects involved were wearing a ski mask, and we thought maybe that might have something to do with the ski mask or something like that.
Did you conduct a follow-up investigation regarding that Walmart tag?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And what did you do in connection with that?
I took that tag and contacted the local Walmart store loss prevention personnel to see if I could obtain any further information, such as stores or locations where that tag might have been at what store.
Did you get any information?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
What information did you receive?
Objection, Your Honor, it's hearsay.
Unless we can resolve, why come on up.
I'll rephrase it.
Okay.
Who did you make contact with at the Walmart?
Refer to my report for the lady's name. I would have contacted a Susan Tyler.
And who is Susan Tyler?
She works Walmart's loss prevention. She was their loss prevention officer at the Nevada store.
After speaking with Susan Tyler, did you obtain any photographs?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And what type of photographs did you receive?
I don't remember the photographs, ma'am, I'll be honest with you.
At any point after speaking with Susan Tyler, did you review any surveillance footage?
It would have been later on at a time I did review a surveillance video from Walmart, yes, ma'am.
And I'm going to show you what's been pre-marked S-127 for identification. You could look at that and just tell us what type of CD that is.
It's a Memorex CD-R.
And is that labeled?
Yes, ma'am.
What's the label?
Ski mask purchase dated 11/08/2009.
Did you review that surveillance footage yourself?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
In addition to reviewing that surveillance, did you review any still photographs from that surveillance tape?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
I'm going to show you what has been pre-marked S-122 through S-126 for identification. Lieutenant, if you can take a look at these photographs. And starting with S-122, can you tell us what's depicted in that photograph?
That photograph is showing a Walmart clerk at the register and a male subject wearing a ball cap. It appears to be a dark colored shirt, and it looks like overalls, ma'am.
And to your knowledge, that's still a photograph that was taken from the surveillance tape.
Yes, ma'am.
What is the date of that?
Looks like 11/08/2009.
Is that close in time to the day that you responded to the home invasion?
Yes, ma'am.
When did you respond to the home invasion?
It would have been on the 9th of November.
Now looking at S-123, you can identify that document.
That's another shot of the first photo, yes, ma'am.
And S-124.
That appears to be the same subject of the other two photos, only he appears to be at the ice cooler in the Walmart store.
Look at S-25, 125.
Yes, ma'am.
And what's depicted in that photograph?
It appears that the subject is leaving the store carrying a bag of ice.
Finally, S-126. What's depicted in that photograph?
It appears to be a pickup appears to be a vending machine in the back of it, in the parking lot at Walmart.
And those are the photographs that you reviewed in connection with your investigation.
Yes, ma'am.
By looking at those photographs, were you ever able to determine the identity of the individual just from those photographs?
No, ma'am, I was not.
Was the investigation still ongoing at that point?
Yes, ma'am, it was.
Now, going back to S-127,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to show you a little bit of the surveillance footage. And you recognize anything from that photograph that was depicted in the still photographs? Or from that image on the recording?
That appears to be the pickup with the vending machines in the back of it. At the Walmart parking lot.
We're just gonna run this through, it's only a few minutes long. Yeah.
Could we stop the video on the first, Jim?
Yeah.